Okay, let's unpack this. Today we are taking a deep dive into the spiritual journey of a figure whose words, even 800 years later, they still resonate with this profound love and philosophy globally. Rumi.
Indeed. We're looking at Maulana Jalaluddin Muhammad Rumi, absolutely one of the world's most celebrated Sufi poets and spiritual masters. This deep dive is really aimed at understanding his radical transformation.
Right, that's the mission here, tracing the life of an established Islamic scholar and jurist, a faqih, and seeing how he became this, well, ecstatic mystic and poet of divine love that we know today. So, to set the stage, maybe let's start with his academic beginnings.
Good idea. His full name, as you said, Maulana Jalaluddin Muhammad Rumi, but mostly known just as Rumi or Mevlana, sometimes Maulana.
And the key dates.
Born September 30, 1207 in Balkh, that's sort of present-day Afghanistan or Tajikistan area, and he died quite a bit later, 1273, in Konya, which is in modern-day Turkey.
Okay, and it feels crucial to understand that starting point because the Rumi we often celebrate, the one writing about wine and longing and this intense love, that wasn't the original picture at all. He was like a pillar of the religious establishment.
Absolutely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, his early life was deeply rooted in traditional Islamic scholarship. Very conventional, in a way.
Trained by his father?
Yes. Educated initially by his father, Baha'u'ddin Walad, who was himself a pretty reputable Sufi scholar. And then later, Rumi got rigorous education in places like Syria, really focusing on Islamic science and jurisprudence fiqh.
So a proper legal scholar. An authority figure.
A recognized authoritative figure, exactly. His life was, structured, focused on law, theology, which makes the shift that comes later all the more, well, dramatic.
That early preparation, that sort of scholarly discipline, it must have provided this really rigid structure. Maybe one that was almost ready to be, completely dismantled, or perhaps repurposed by something external.
Precisely. That rigorous intellectual foundation meant that when the spiritual shift did come, it wasn't shallow, it wasn't superficial, it was fundamental, like a seismic realignment of his entire being.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting then. Because that realignment, it happens around 1244 CE with this pivotal, almost mythological encounter.
That's right, 1244, that's the year. The encounter with the wandering fakir, or dervish, Shams-e Tabrizi.
Right, Shams.
And this meeting, you just can't overstate it. It was the single most important event in Rumi's life. It altered its entire trajectory.
So the respected academic meets this wandering, kind of unpredictable mystic. What was it about Shams that caused such an instantaneous and, well, total shift? Rumi basically just dropped his lecture notes, his legal texts, for poetry and, well, spiritual intoxication.
Well, Shams wasn't just a friend. He instantly became Rumi's murshid, his spiritual guide.
Ah, his guide. Okay.
And the sources suggest Shams represented, like, the living embodiment of the divine reality that Rumi had previously only studied intellectually. He saw theory made real, perhaps.
So, like, seeing his own potential reflected.
Exactly. Reflected in Shams' raw, unmediated passion. And the shift was immediate. Rumi abandoned his respected post as a jurist, as a scholar, to become this passionate poet of love, of mysticism.
It's incredible that the appearance of his spiritual guide was so transformative, but the sources seem to imply that Shams's disappearance was arguably even more important for Rumi's actual poetic output.
Yes, that's what's fascinating here. The intense pain of separation, the Judai, the longing that followed Shams' departure, or maybe his loss. It wasn't paralyzing for Rumi, it became the primary emotional engine.
So Rumi essentially channeled his personal heartbreak and grief to articulate a universal spiritual truth. That feeling of longing became the poetic medium itself.
Exactly that profound pain of separation, it fueled his greatest poetry. The sorrow, it sort of forced him to express this eternal yearning of the soul for union with the divine.
Which is the definition of divine love, right? Ishq-e-ilahi.
Precisely. Shams was no longer just a person. He became the mirror reflecting God's own radiant presence. And his loss crystallized that search for the divine deep within Rumi's heart.
That emotional engine you mentioned, it brings us right to his masterpieces, where these core themes just explode. Divine love, the soul's yearning, this relentless search for truth.
His primary work of devotion, you could say, is the Diwan-e Shams-e Tabrizi.
The Diwan-e Shams.
Yes, and it's colossal, huge collection of ghazals, or songs. We're talking around 40,000 couplets. It's just pure, raw, intense spiritual passion poured onto the page.
40,000 couplets. dedicated explicitly to his lost friend and guide. That level of spiritual identification must have been incredibly profound, especially considering Shams wasn't, the traditional scholarly figure you'd expect to be honored like that.
It really shows the depth of their spiritual merging, their connection. Rumi dedicated the entire collection to Shams, and the most striking detail, maybe, is that in many of the poems, Rumi intentionally inserted Shams' name instead of his own name.
Or his own signature should be.
Exactly, in the Takalis, the signature line of the ghazal. It's a powerful symbol of their deep spiritual unity. It suggests that in that state of ecstatic love, Rumi's had, in a sense, vanished. Only you, Shams, as the reflection of the beloved, the divine, remained.
That perfectly encapsulates the ecstatic side of his shift, the passionate heart. But Rumi also managed to synthesize his scholarly background into his philosophical masterpiece, right? The Masnavi.
The Masnavi, yes. Equally vast, perhaps even larger. It clocks in at over 50,000 couplets.
Wow.
And it's universally regarded as one of the greatest poems in Persian literature. It often gets nicknamed the Quran in Persian, or sometimes the Bible of Sufism. High praise.
So if the Divan is the expression of raw love, the heart singing, what role did the Masnavi play? Was it different?
You could say the Masnavi is Rumi the scholar returning, but now armed with mysticism. It systematically explains Sufi philosophy, ethics, metaphysics. But crucially, it does this using thousands of charming, relatable stories, parables, anecdotes.
So it's teaching through stories.
Exactly, to make complex spiritual wisdom accessible to everyone. It's like a teaching manual, but built on narrative, on storytelling.
So the Divan is the heart singing, the Masnavi is the mind teaching. And we probably shouldn't forget Fihi Ma Fihi either.
Right, Fihi Ma Fi, which translates roughly as "it is what it is," or "in it what's in it." It's a collection of his sermons and discourses, sort of more direct prose conversations.
And what does that tell us?
Well, that collection gives us a really good window into his teaching methodology. He wasn't focused on abstract dogma, His teaching was very practical, centering on life, on love, very importantly on the dissolution of the ego, the ankar, and this relentless search for God hidden just beneath the surface of everyday experience.
This focus on erasing the self, the ego, it's probably best illuminated by one of his most famous parables. I think it's often called The Lover Who Is Nothing.
Yes.
It's short, this story, but it feels like the entire blueprint of Rumi's philosophy on union is packed into it.
It is a profound story, really distillation. So a lover comes and knocks upon the door of the beloved.
Okay, the beloved asks from within, who is it?
And the lover, while identifying himself in the normal way, responds.
He replies, it is I, standard answer. But the beloved immediately refuses entry. Says something like, there is no room in this house for I and you. The door stays shut.
That must have been a stunning rejection, like forcing the lover into a total reevaluation of self.
Exactly. So the lover goes away, spends a whole year in deep solitude, subjecting himself to rigorous self-purification, consciously trying to forget his own self, his I-ness.
So he essentially dedicates that entire year to the annihilation of his ego, trying to erase that I.
That's the idea. When he returns a year later, he knocks again. Same scenario. The beloved asks the same question from inside. Who is it? But this time, the lover has genuinely transformed. He doesn't say, it is I.
What does he say?
He replies simply, you.
You, not I.
Okay, so what does this all mean for us listening now? Rumi's teaching seems to be that true love, true union with the divine. It requires erasing the individual's separate ego, that constant feeling of I. When you stop being defined by your small, isolated self and become you, which represents the divine, the Paramatma, only then is complete union actually possible.
The conflict isn't really between two separate beings. The conflict is inherent in the language of separation itself, the very concept of I versus you. Rumi's lesson is that true wholeness requires self-annihilation, what Sufis call fana.
As long as you maintain that rigid sense of I, you see yourself as distinct, separate from the universe, from the beloved.
Right, but when you become you, when that boundary dissolves, you become the whole, the separation disappears.
It's an intensely challenging concept for sure, but it is beautifully distilled into those short, powerful quotes of his that are so widely celebrated today. Maybe we should look at some of those nuggets of wisdom. They kind of summarize his core teachings for the listener.
Good idea. First, maybe the quote that challenges purely external worship. Don't look for me anywhere. I am right near you. I am neither in churches, nor in mosques, nor in a temple.
A very clear directive there. The search isn't outward, it's inward. God resides within the human heart, essentially. That resonates perfectly with the whole idea of inner transformation we've been talking about.
Definitely. Then there's the emphasis on spiritual drive over just, physical effort. It's not your feet that will take you forward. It is your soul, which is ready to fly.
That highlights the primacy of spiritual will, pure intention. It's not just about going through the motions.
Precisely. And look at his perspective on suffering, which is quite counterintuitive for many, but incredibly powerful. The wound is the place where the light enters you.
The wound is where the light enters.
That perspective completely reframes difficulty, doesn't it? Pain and suffering aren't just punishment, they are potential doorways. They can lead us to deeper truth, deeper knowledge, opening us up to a spiritual light that might have been obscured by, comfort or ignorance before.
Which links back perfectly to that generative pain caused by Shams' absence, the fuel for his poetry.
Exactly. And maybe one more, a quote that speaks directly to human potential. "You were born with wings. Why do you choose to crawl through life?"
Powerful.
Rumi is constantly reminding us that the human state holds immense, almost unlimited potential. We shouldn't confine ourselves to self-imposed limitations or just mundane realities when spiritual flight, that soaring of the soul, is actually possible.
Rumi's wisdom, clearly, it didn't disappear when he passed away in 1273. His legacy is tangible. It's an enduring spiritual tradition.
Absolutely. His followers, soon after his death, established the Mevlevi Sufi Order. And this is the order we know today, globally really, as the Whirling Dervishes.
The famous Sema ceremony where the dervishes spin in that rhythmic, almost hypnotic motion.
That whirling ritual, the Sema, it's a direct physical expression of Rumi's philosophy. It's a meditative practice, an ecstatic dance meant to help the participants attain samadhi.
A state of absorption.
Yes, a state of intense spiritual absorption and ecstatic union with the divine. It mirrors that surrender of the ego we talked about in the story of the lover, turning towards the truth, abandoning the self.
So this deep dive has really explored that dramatic transformation, hasn't it? From Jalal ad-Din Muhammad, the meticulous academic, into Rumi, the poet of mystical devotion. A transformation that seems entirely catalyzed and defined by his relationship with Shams-e Tabrizi and the subsequent surrender of the self.
It really serves as a powerful reminder, I think, that even the deepest intellectual foundation can be radically overturned or maybe fulfilled by the power of genuine, unconditional spiritual passion and connection.
Before we wrap up, let's leave you, the listener, with one final provocative thought from Rumi that kind of builds on everything we've discussed today.
Yes, he says something profound. Be quiet. There is nothing else in the world that exists except the mind lost in noise and confusion.
Quiet.
Rumi teaches that true peace, true reality, exists beyond the endless chatter of the mental ego. So the question we'd like to leave you with is this. If you could manage, even for moments, to silence the noise and confusion of your own mind, what profound truths might become accessible to you? What might you hear in that quiet?
That is definitely a deep question worth mulling over. Hopefully you feel a little encouraged, maybe like Rumi suggests, to recognize those wings you were born with. Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible spiritual journey into Rumi's world.
Thank you.
We'll catch you on the next Deep Dive.